Hi, Carl DePrado, A2Z Business IT. And today I wanted to talk to you about the cybersecurity. We're almost halfway through 2022, and we have some new statistics to take a look at. And this was from an article in Forbes, and that was just printed. If you look for Forbes and you look for cybersecurity in 2022, this is the article I'm going to be referring to. So right now, cybersecurity now is the number one, tops the worldwide business concerns for 2022. Tops the worldwide concerns. So cybersecurity is now a greater threat to businesses than COVID-19 pandemic, supply chain disruptions, which also heavily affect firms. That pales number two to IT outages, data breaches, and ransomware attacks. So it's now, it is now the top there. One of the things that they've looked at, what they came to light, was a group called Positive Networks went ahead and did an analysis that basically said that cyber criminals, when they decide to target an organization, have an efficacy rate or an effective rate of 93% of being able to get into that company. So that is pretty large. Businesses are now suffering because of this. Based on this, it isn't surprising. Businesses are now suffering 50% more cyber attempts than they did in 2021. So that's pretty high. The rise happens to be also due in part for Log4j. I don't know if we've talked about this before in the past, but it's one of the biggest exploits that's out there. It's still out there in the wild. That came out in the last quarter of 2021. But Log4j is still being used to disrupt businesses. And one of those things that you want to make sure is not being inside of your supply chain or on any of your devices or endpoints or any of the services that you use. You also, the most targeted sectors, educational research is up by 75%. Healthcare is up by 71%. MSPs that don't secure themselves are up by 67%. Communications is up by 51%. Government and military is up by 47%. Let's get back to MSPs for a second. That's managed service providers, the people who are supposed to be protecting you. A lot of them are just taking shortcuts, and they're not doing the right things by their business. And so that's why all of a sudden you can find two MSPs where one is a lot cheaper than the other. But what they're doing is they're not protecting themselves. And by not protecting themselves, they're not protecting their clients. And that's why attacks are up by 67%. They are the low-hanging fruit. That IT guy who does it as a hobby, or that nephew of the owner who thinks he knows something about computers, is a great place for bad guys to penetrate. Cybersecurity is really focusing on small and medium-sized businesses, because the large businesses already have have a lot more security and infrastructure, where the small businesses, they're easy pickings. So where do they get caught? These small businesses, insignificant security measures, 45% of it is due to that. The frequency of attacks, which have increased on small businesses by 66%. And there's a lot of background attacks. The background, the cyber 69% of the attacks have now gone from a spray thing where they would just send out like a general email blast saying, I am the prince of an oligarch, and I'd like to get some money here, to a very targeted attack where it's like, oh, we have a free Amazon gift card for you, George. And it's addressed to you. The most common types of attacks on small businesses include phishing, social engineering, stolen or compromised device, and credential theft. Let's just spend a moment on credential theft. What is that? Well, that means, you may not have directly been hacked, but what will happen is, let's say you've opened up an account with Adobe or with Target or something like that, and you tend to use the same passwords over and over again. Well, what happens is when those organizations get breached and those passwords get put on the dark web, then what the bad guys do is they take those passwords and those email accounts and they start to use them on other sites. They call it credential stuffing. And what they'll do with that is they'll proceed to try on all these accounts, and they'll try variations of the passwords that are out there. So what they start to do is create a profile of you. So if you've gotten a password, one of my favorite ones is baseball 1. They may say, well, baseball 2, capital B as in baseball, or baseball with an @ sign. They'll work on all the variations. If they find all of a sudden another one of your sites is, football 22, they may say, oh, baseball 22, let's try that. So that's what they start to do. They start to do some correlations, and that can all be done by computer and programming. And that's why the smaller attacks are much easier now. So what was I going to say? Internet of Things is also a huge part where where we're seeing breaches. What do we mean by Internet of Things? Everything from smartphones to tablets to your smartwatch. They all have computers. Your router has a computer in it. Your firewall, your Wi-Fi access points, all of them have that there, and they usually are not as secured as they could be, and they can be exploited, and they can be just as effective as you getting a virus on your main desktop or computer, as far as getting the information that you guys that you're trying to protect, such as bank accounts, social security numbers, credit card numbers, PII information, or anything else that could expose your business. So this is all pretty heavy duty here. I mean, this goes into crypto mining, where even if they're not doing ransomware, they may just say, oh, you have a nice computer, let me proceed to put a little program in the background that's running that proceeds to mine cryptocurrency in the background. It's not going to be my electricity that the bad guy's thinking, instead of me spending money on the electricity to run that crypto mining, I'm going to run it on your organization. And one of the things you can always check to see if you might be a victim of crypto mining is if all of a sudden 1 month your electric bill goes from, let's say, $200 a month to $5,000 a month, or some ridiculous amount of money, you probably have computers that have been infected with programs that will crypto mine and give the bad guys the cryptocurrency. So there's a lot of different ways. Unfortunately, I think what we're getting when you read this Forbes report is it's not getting any easier. It's getting worse as they proceed to weaponize these tools that are out there, and they proceed to figure out that there's money inside of our computers. And it's not a victimless crime. Basically, it affects the businesses, the things that we work really hard for, and we all pay a price for that. So what was I going to say? To end this all here, if you're listening to this and you're not sure if you're protected, feel free to schedule a consultation with me at A2Z Business IT. And I thank you for your time today, and I'll talk to you later.